the experiences I've had with the VA, and since I've came home, are worse than anything I ever experienced in combat. We were in Camp Ramadi, and I did convoy security operations. And those missions were pretty high intensity. We would generally get attacked most of the times that we went out there. And then once we got to the base downtown, the base itself was fairly frequently attacked.
Women are faced with combat every single day, or threat of combat every single day. Yet many of their commanders never write down on their forms, their DD-214s, that they were in combat. So when they come home and they separate from the service and they go into a doctor and the doctor wants to diagnose them with post-traumatic stress syndrome or traumatic brain injury or some other result of a conflict, they go back to look at their records and nobody ever wrote down they were in combat. So they end up having to explain maybe a year, 2, 3 years later, yes, I was in combat. And the powers to be go, well, you couldn't have been, you're a woman.
An IED went off right behind my truck, and I had had a lot of the symptoms of TBI. I didn't know what that was at the time or anything, but it was later on, looking back at my records, where it started to make sense. But then I saw that one of the people that I was with got knocked out by this IED, was diagnosed with a TBI and PTSD. And I said, well, is this something that I should be concerned about? I have a lot of the same things going on. And they wrote in my records in a way that made it seem like I was just being paranoid. I think that I could have a TBI, but I've never been near any explosions.
I think that was an issue across the nation, where Americans still had this perception that women served behind the front lines and they weren't in combat. In fact, one of the most dangerous things you can do in Iraq is a job that women have been doing well since World War I, which is to be drivers. That was always one of those jobs that they allowed women to do, and yet driving in a convoy is probably the most dangerous thing you can do, next to actually kicking down doors and engaging in infantry tactics.
We need to educate the community in understanding that these women are in fact serving in these roles. Whether the government chooses to acknowledge through policy or not, this is a fact. When you go out and have drinks with the guys, they get a pat on the back and a beer, and you get, you get an acknowledgement, and they sort of think you're arm candy rather than, one of the guys. We are very proud of our service, and we want to continue that. We just want to know that when we come home, that America has our back. That's the biggest thing. Because when we're over there, you want to be able to feel like you're coming home into open arms rather than to a public that doesn't acknowledge you for what you've just done and what you've just sacrificed.